If you're tired of the standard business and marketing fundamentals, frameworks, and funnels, you need a little mischief. Get ready to turn up the volume on the CEO Mischief Maker podcast, where you access conversations with seasoned business owners who have smashed through mindset barriers, innovated the standard boring business and marketing playbooks, and executed future-paced strategies with bleeding-edge tools and tactics to micro-fail their way into massive success and growth. We are Mindset Impact Strategic Catalysts helping innovative entrepreneurs focus. We are CEO Mischief Makers. Ready to make a little mischief? Hey there, CEO Mischief Makers. MKJ here, and I just had to add my little 2 cents after talking with Michael Strong. So, my personal experience, I have 2 sons. You've heard me allude to them here and there, but my youngest was very obvious that he was not not being very well served in the typical high school situation. And with his request and his blessing, we removed him from our public high school, same one that my oldest son went to, and basically started a homeschool for him. And of course, lots of fear came with that. Are we doing the right thing? Are we going to set him up for failure? Are we going to take him away from the process that's going to allow him to be a contributing adult with society, let alone be happy and fulfilled in life? And really, I had to trust my instincts, trust my son, who knew himself very well, and just go. And we started a homeschool, and he pretty much taught himself with conversations with us that not knowing this, we used the Socratic method. He took college courses to make sure he got the credits that he needed for science, math. He was very strong in math, taught himself algebra in about 3 weeks, taught himself the entire algebra book when he was in 8th grade so that he could start 9th grade in geometry, and had to convince the teacher to give him the test, the final exam, to pass algebra, to recommend him for geometry. That's the kind of kid he is. And of course, the teacher refused at first until I got involved, and then finally gave him the test, but kept telling him, "You're going to fail. You're going to fail." Actually said those words. "You're going to fail in geometry. So fine, I'll set you up and I'll give you the recommendation, but you're going to fail." So we homeschooled the last 3 years of high school, sent him to the local community college to take the courses that he needed to take that we couldn't instruct him at home with, like chemistry lab and things like that. And he graduated from a homeschool high school. Now, the reason I'm telling you this is because there may be some of you out there who are afraid of this possibility of taking a different path than the one you personally experienced. I get it. Totally get it. But the result has been, and we checked with we live near UC Davis, UC Berkeley, right? Some really well-known schools. And we checked with those admissions departments. I called them and personally asked them, what are the requirements? What do you weight? What admissions information that you collect do you weight more than any other? And asked them, is it going to harm my child to homeschool him with the opportunity of going to your university if that's what he wants to do? And they assured me that they have many homeschooled kids, and the things that weigh more than the grades they got in high school necessarily are obviously the transcripts from the courses they take in a community college, which really account for AP. They don't have to take AP exams if they actually take the course in college. And not only that, that can transfer to some of their actual college courses that required they've already taken in high school. So those things matter more, and the SAT or ACT scores matter more. So my son, with me nail biting the whole way, took his SAT, studied for his SAT exam after he graduated high school, got a very high score, and applied to 2 schools, 2 universities that he wanted to go to. And just like Michael said in my conversation with him, the SAT scores mattered, but also his projects mattered. He taught himself animation, computer animation. And he had already done work for me as an entrepreneur. He did a bunch of GIFs and a bunch of graphic design and animations and videos for me, but he also had done his own portfolio. He did his own stuff that he played around with in the technologies that he taught himself, like Adobe Illustrator and Blender, some of these tools, technology tools that he taught himself and then animated a bunch of things with. And he put that information with my help online in his own portfolio, in his own website. And pointing the schools to his body of work at the age of, he started this basically at 14. So for the 3 years that he was, all of his spare time was spent doing what he loved, which is animation. And he could point the school to that extracurricular activity, those projects. And the school saw what he had already done on his own volition, in addition to his SAT scores. And that weighed so much more heavily than any score he got in English literature or chemistry or PE or foreign language. And he was accepted immediately with scholarships to both of the schools that he applied to. And then he was able to be picky as to which one he wanted to attend. And the moral of this story is, don't be afraid. Pay attention to your kid. Pay attention to yourself and your relationship with your kid. If your intentions are to help your child become the most productive, happy human being that they can possibly be at this moment, because of course you know they will change, then that's what you need to do. And I'm here to tell you I've experienced it and lived through it. And probably a lot of this gray hair that I have was created from the anxiety and stress as to whether or not I was doing the right thing. And looking back, it absolutely was. Now, taking one step further, I will tell you that my youngest started at the university of his choice. And unfortunately, this was right at the beginning of COVID. So at first he was going to go away to college in Pennsylvania, of all places, and I'm in California. So that freaked me out. But anyway, not that much. I'm not a helicopter parent by any stretch. But yeah, it worried me a little bit. But beyond that, he couldn't. So he had to do online classes. About a month into his university education, just starting the courses and attending the classes online, he was contacted through his, I think it was his LinkedIn profile. He had created a LinkedIn profile, created his portfolio, all of these things to become a professional animator. And he was contacted via his LinkedIn profile by a local company that basically said they were extremely impressed. They found his portfolio online doing searches and found him on LinkedIn and then found his portfolio. And they were extremely impressed and wanted to interview him. And of course, at 17, he had never interviewed for anything, so he had no clue what that was about. But even through that process, they told him, we would be prepared to offer you a full-time position right here in your hometown, making more money than he would make in a starting position when he graduated college. We're talking like $50,000 a year. They were willing to, with zero experience, zero work experience, just on his portfolio and the knowledge and the interview with knowing his dedication to this field. They would be willing to talk to him about that kind of a position. And so he, after that conversation, came to me and said, you know what, Mom? That's a position that I thought I was actually being educated for with this college education. But I've already taught myself everything I need to know in order to actually fulfill that job. So why am I going to college if the job I am hopefully being educated to get is already being offered to me? And my response was, that's a good question. What's your answer? So his answer was to quit college and start work. So That, my friends, is my anecdotal personal experience, just to give you the confidence to look at your children, think about what they need. Are they a fish and the public education system is trying to teach them how to climb a tree? Or are they a bird flying and the public education system is trying to, or private education, is trying to teach them how to swim? Pay attention to your kid. You know them best. I really believe that. You know your child best, and you know their potential. Every child has incredible potential. Every human has incredible potential. Please, if you're at all thinking that this might be a direction you want to go, investigate it. I encourage you, lovingly, compassionately encourage you to investigate. Because let me tell you, I have no regrets whatsoever helping my child do this exact same process, even though I didn't know that was what it was called. I didn't know that was what we were doing. I was just going out into the blackness of the unknown and saying, it has to be better than what he's already experienced. I'm going to make sure it's better than what he's already experienced, because that's my job, to set him up to be the most productive, happy human being I can possibly set him up for. So I hope that helps. And I hope you so enjoy the journey.
Part of what I'm doing as an educator, in addition to the kind of soft skills, is helping them become really effective at learning how to learn. I see the SAT as not a perfect measure, but part of it. But part of this is creating as an ideal the notion that we should be able to learn anything on our own. If you're dependent on taking a class to learn something, you're in the wrong ballgame as far as I'm concerned. And certainly, once you leave school, professionals are learning all the time. You've got to learn a lot quickly, well on your own.
Okay, CEO Mischief Makers, welcome back to the conversation with really amazing conversation with Michael Strong. If you have not listened to the first conversation, I encourage you, very strongly encourage you, to go listen to that, because we're going to dive deeper now into the innovation of education, which is what Michael's doing. So, Michael, you talked about some of the major mindset shifts, and you took us through most of them in a high level form, and we dove a little deeper into two. But talk about how you've innovated education. So we know the standard framework: writing, reading, arithmetic. There are other things that have been added to that now. It's very different from when I went to school, and yeah, I'm kind of old, but I'm not that old. So tell me how you're looking at the standard educational framework, which is get a child to go through the education process. I think the purpose is so we have a wonderful, happy, productive adult.
Mhm.
That's kind of, I may be naive, but I thought that was the purpose of education. How are you innovating that process?
Well, thank you. So I would say I'm going to use the theme of, two cultures again, crossing cultures. So when I certainly come from a tradition of liberal arts college, liberal arts education, I'm kind of a cousin to classical education. But when I was working in Alaska, one of our funders was an organization called Alaska's Youth Ready for Work, representing 25% of the Alaska workforce, employers of the private sector workforce. And even then, this was again 30 years ago, the issue of soft skills was big. The former president of LinkedIn, Jeff Weiner, has said that the soft skills gap is the biggest skills gap. Everybody talks about tech skills, but people who don't show up, who don't look you in the eye, who are not articulate, who can't work with other people, who become defensive, who can't work together in a team. Later Google did, Google Alpha, where they discovered, not surprising, that the most productive teams were not the ones with the smartest people, but the ones that work together most effectively. Most of adult life in the information economy consists of human beings working with other human beings. There's the rare lone geek who does all the coding, but mostly it's people working with people. And so I connected the classical liberal arts tradition with, we measure and improve social skills, teamwork, responsibility, initiative. We have students self-evaluate on these metrics. A lot of what we're doing is making soft skills an explicit goal of what we do. You know, with the cognitive skills, I mentioned the SAT in the earlier segment, most tests are end of semester or end of year tests on conventional content. I'm much more interested in autodidacticism. There's actually a controversy on whether one can increase IQ. And without getting into the weeds on this, I think one can help people become remarkably more effective at learning how to learn. Give you a little vignette. At St. John's, one of the interesting things about the program there is that all of the faculty have to teach all the subjects. So if you come in with a PhD in Greek, you have to teach physics. If you come in and with a PhD in physics, you have to teach music. Insane. But what that does is everybody's learning all the time. So it's more like a learning club. I became a really effective autodidact. I've worked with graduates, biochemistry seminars. I worked with a Nobel laureate economist. I've got a top teacher on a pedagogy test without taking courses in education. I can learn anything really well on my own. And so part of what I'm doing as an educator, in addition to the kind of soft skills, is helping them become really effective at learning how to learn. I see the SAT as not a perfect measure, but part of it. But part of this is creating as an ideal the notion that we should be able to learn anything on our own. If you're dependent on taking a class to learn something, you're in the wrong ballgame as far as I'm concerned. And certainly, once you leave school, professionals are learning all the time. You've got to learn a lot quickly, well on your own. And then finally, one other piece is this entrepreneurial and creative piece where in traditional cultures, at the age of 12 or 13, the boy would go out and hunt his first deer. They would be expected to take on adult level responsibilities. I think a lot of adolescent dysfunction in the US is due to the fact that we enforce childhood. It's basically infantilizing teenagers. It's terrifically destructive. So a lot of schools have projects, but often the project is, oh, the teacher wants to, I'm going to be mean. I'm trying not to be mean, but it's silly. Everybody knows it's silly. So what we do is by the age of 18, we expect you to be doing adult level professional work or better in your chosen domain. We're not going to make the fish swim or the birds fly. I mean,
opposite.
Opposite. Thank you.
Yeah.
But so I've got a 17-year-old who raised 1.1 million for his Minecraft mod company. I've got a student who writes fan fiction. She's maybe 15 now, has written 200,000 words, has 30,000 followers. I've got a student who interviews adults around the world, has interviewed about 300-400 adult professionals. And so the notion of performance for me is not just, did you get an A on the history test, but for really important performance is this combination of world-class social skills, interpersonal skills, soft skills, plus world-class autodidacticism and how to learn. And then finally, the ability to do real-world entrepreneurial and creative projects at an adult level by 18. And with those as the goals of what it means to be a well-educated 18-year-old, then you work backward, all with happiness and lifelong happiness and well-being banked in. So that's kind of the end point, and we change everything in order to get there.
Okay, there's another alignment that I just love. The reason I'm so drawn to what you're talking about is because you're starting with the end in mind. And you're starting with not just the end result, but a timeline. You only have people until they're 18 or their 18th year, typically, because they're all going to turn 18 at different times, right? I graduated high school at 17. I started college at 17. I turned 18 late in the year. So, and same with my youngest son and my older son, both of them graduated college at 17 and then started college at 17. They were both born later in the year. So you have a goal, you're looking at the conversion, if you will, the end result, and you have a specific timeline that is required to get there. And then you're going to work backwards and say, okay, these are the things we have to accomplish. Then you can set your milestones, but you can also individualize those milestones based on the person and get them to where they need to be, wherever they need to be, not where a particular standardized test or representation of what they know remember about history or anything like that, but where they need to be in their lives with their passions. That's incredible.
Huge. And just to kind of fill in, so some kids, a really core means of doing this, means of achieving this is The kids must learn to own their own education and own their own life. And, we do get a lot of homeschooling kids and alternative schooling kids, schools where agency is baked in, like Montessori. Those kids flourish in our system, boom, on day one. Where there's more work with kids who maybe been to schools where they've been much more passive, and it can take us a semester or a year to shift them over. The one-on-one mentoring every 2 weeks is important to that. We have personal growth every day where the kids talk about how to become a better version of themselves. It takes a while to do that. And sometimes, the mentoring, we have to be pretty blunt. Video game addiction among boys is a huge issue today. And I and my staff have had many conversations. Okay, do you want to be, playing video games in your mom's basement at 30? No. 25? No. 20? No. 18? No. Okay. When are you gonna start taking responsibility for this? And I would say one of my most joyful markers of success is when a boy, so far not a girl, but a boy will come to me and say, I took the games off my computer. I'm like, wow, hurrah.
Wow. And that's giving real skills. Yes, soft skills, because they're more comfortable talking to other people, which usually boys who are addicted to video games aren't. They'd rather just have the video games and talk to the people who are like them, and that's it. And soft skills, but really hard skills to make those decisions for their lives and not be really guided by something external to them, which is usually probably their discomfort, right? With these other things that are going on. It's not the video games, it's their discomfort with other things. And this is just the easiest, quickest thing to feel comfortable.
Huge. So, in many ways, there has been both a character education movement and a social emotional learning movement. But sadly, I think because of the structure of regular schools, there's just not enough human to human interaction and not enough alignment on goals, such that, I've seen character education classes where there's a poster on the wall. That's not going to change behavior at all.
No.
It's delusional to think so. But so we need high touch human relationships, and we also need alignment in terms of owning your own education, owning your own life is essential. And we need to have the parents on board, the guides on board, all of the guides across the whole school. So every August we do a training where part of what we do is, this is where we're going, this is the roadmap, this is what we need to do to support students in this transition, these are some resources. It's kind of got to be a coordinated full court press effort in order to pull kids coming from the standard culture into this much deeper own your own life and be on a path towards lifelong happiness and well-being. And now for me, the connection is happiness consists of being in control of your own body, mind, and destiny. And if one is always indulging impulses and while being bored in school, you can never have, or it's very difficult to have a flourishing life. At some point, you've got to get it together.
Yeah, definitely. I side note, I just did an interview with Dr. Ellen Wong, who is basically, she's a naturopath physician, and she's developed a happiness framework. And it's specifically along the lines, one of them specifically is not productivity of being more productive with your time. It's productivity and being able to have control of your own life, your own time, whether it's work time, family time, me time, whatever, but to actually have that control of your life. And instead of being dictated or feeling like, obviously we can all choose what we're going to do. If you want to work 80 hours a week, it's your choice, but you're feeling like someone's dictating that to you. Instead of having that be an external force that you think is dictating it to you. And it leads to much more happiness. But anyway, that's another story. You're just saying exactly what she was saying in that respect. But so in terms of that innovation, you have teachers who obviously are facilitating this process. You have parents who are very excited to have their children participate in this process. And then you have the children whose lives are really being transformed from this process. Do you have any statistics or any information to see the difference? And I'm not trying to put down school, but to see the difference between the standard public school situation and really that process and where kids are when they leave high school versus your method and where kids are when they leave your school?
Sure. I would say the simplest thing to measure, of course, are test scores. And so when we administer the SAT, we've seen often double the annual rate of SAT increase. simply because we are getting kids, in the case of reading, to learn to read difficult material and analyze it. The math takes a little bit more coaching, but also great math gains. And so the SAT gains are the simplest version. I would also say that this is more anecdotal, but another reason I feel so passionately about the mental health issue is I've seen literally three, four, maybe 5 dozen kids who've been at a regular school, public or private, come to a small, warm, personal community. And often they were anxious, depressed, suicidal, on meds. And within a few weeks, sometimes months, if they're really, hurt by the previous system, it can take months to come out of it. But gradually they become happier, more joyful, more purpose-driven. Sometimes they let go of the meds. And I've got concrete experience seeing kids, and a lot of these families had money, and maybe they'd spent a lot of money on psychiatrists and group homes and retreats, and pulling their hair to do anything to save their child. But the only thing that really worked was coming to a very different learning environment where the child had agency and mentorship and personal relationships, and people constantly coaching them on how to be their best self as they define it. Again, part of this is the variation where, and this makes it hard to measure, because how do you compare the kid who is rocking it on animation with the kid who's rocking it on the SAT with the kid who's rocking it as an entrepreneur? Very different cases.
Yeah. But and let me just ask you this, because a word keeps popping up in my mind as you explain this situation, and that word is confidence. Is that a word that describes some of the changes that you see? Because you talk about agency, you talk about self-direction, you talk about self-reflection, and that really allows a child especially to feel confident in who they are and the decisions they make and the choices that they make. It doesn't mean by the age 18 they're going to have to decide exactly what they're going to do for the rest of their life, but it gives them that confidence to know that, okay, as my life changes, I have the tools to respond to it confidently.
Huge. And again, there are lots of books, not surprising that previous book resonated. There are lots of books that talk about this, I think. So give you another book I love is Dan Pink's Drive, where he talks about motivation as the result of purpose, autonomy, and competence. And some students come in and they're ready to take advantage of our environment. They're super confident already. Other students have had their confidence absolutely brutalized by another system. Again, literally suicidal in several cases. And part of this is, with math, we personalize math to a radical extent. So the kid who can do 2 years in 1 year, no problem, that's what you do. We've had kids where we need to slow down and do half year math. Parents are open for it. We're okay not doing any math at all last year. Let's first just change your relationship to math, because once students are no longer damaged by the system, then we can get to learning, but we need to heal that. There's another wonderful book called Fear is a Mind Killer. And it's a great quip because so many students experience fear, humiliation, and so forth in a regular school environment. And then before we can get them learning, we need to kind of take care of all of that baggage and get them to the point where they can start moving forward in a confident manner.
Okay, hold on. If your mindset was shifted, you were inspired to innovate, and you were spurred into action, don't just move on with your day. Focus, my friend, and take a few minutes to visit CEOmischiefmaker.com to learn more about the value that was shared with you today. Please act now and create some CEO mischief of your own.